All right. Can everyone hear me in the back? Is that good? All right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for making it through the day. There was so much good material, and I know it can be kind of, mentally stimulating and exhausting in some ways. So I appreciate everyone being here. And thank you, Audio Codes, for this handy notebook. I've been taking so many good notes from today. But I wanted to start off with something that Christoph mentioned earlier about the story of the bartender. And I just had a conversation on my taxi ride of I was like, where are you going? I'm going to a conference on AI. Ooh, scary, right? And so we're fortunate to be in this space and to have some level of understanding of, how LLMs work, how we feed data, and all of that. But to the outside world, there's so much unknown. And in some ways, it's our responsibility as pioneers in this space, as we're creating new things with the companies that either we're starting or we're a part of, to educate. That kind of comes with the job. It's something I tell my team at GoDaddy a lot. You're going to get questions, and you're going to get a lot of questions that may seem very basic, but this is just part of being in a new space, in a nascent space, is to answer those questions. So what I want to do today, at least crack the surface of, is to really talk about what does it mean to be responsible and ethical in this space, because those are some really big words, but what does that really mean, and how can we deeper dive into that to understand this is X, Y, and Z, so we have something of more detail to talk about. So my ask for us all here today is to really think about AI from the standpoint of the future. So, zoom out 20 years, maybe 50 years, maybe farther, but really get in that mindset of what we're developing here is very early stages and what that can look like and where we're headed. So that's my ask for today. And imagining this in like the mass market. So having, robots that we might see in some of the famous movies that we watch, like actually out here on our planet Earth. So in order to be able to do this, I've talked about this before, last year here, and I've done this before in London, and we'll reiterate, is the key to us finding out what is ethical and responsible is really by defining what our unique value as humans is, because the gap between that and AI or machines is what is going to drive that difference and what we need to protect. So to kind of start it off, I do have a fun exercise for us today. I tend to do these during my talks because some really interesting insight comes out from it. But before that, I just want to talk about how big of a year it has been the last year and a half. To be able to work with technology that looks at the very, very base level closer to being very intelligent, to be able to have such large levels of data and understanding with ChatGPT and all the new things that are coming out ever since then. So it really is a big moment. I think Christoph, you had mentioned earlier, is like, bigger than maybe the Industrial Revolution. We're at a very pivotal time here, and we all get to be part of that. So just want to highlight the importance of it, and when we zoom out into history of like human history over the century, this will be a moment that's talked about, and we get to be developers in it. So in some ways, we have opened Pandora's box, and that's fine, but we want to learn how to manage it. And we've begun that process, which I'm really, really happy to see with the EU AI Act and at conferences like this, where everyone is talking about these topics proactively. And that's really what it takes, is being proactive in the conversation. We might not have the answers today, but at least we're working towards it and we have awareness about it. So the goal through this conversation is to at least have some idea after these 20 minutes together of what we might envision a future of conversational AI is that is ethical and responsible based on what we know today as we think about far into the future. So I hope we're inspired to think further after this, and that we continue to do exercises like that we're gonna do, and bring our viewpoints to our workplaces so that we can continue to have this topic be of top of mind as we work in this space. So I hope you're super fueled up to share something from this presentation and others with your friends and family. And I think that will take some of the edge off of the bartenders, the taxi drivers, and folks who are not in the space out there, because it's only through education and knowledge sharing can we really quell fear, which comes from a lack of knowing sometimes. So to start off, and hopefully everyone enjoys this, because I know it is kind of end of day, so this will be a moment to really do something different. We're going to do an exercise that goes into envisioning what an advanced AI form is to you. So we'll need every single person in this room, except our lovely crew out there in the back, to, we're gonna do like a closing eyes exercise and just kind of do some imagination and then share what comes up for you. So if everyone can just close your eyes and take 3 very deep breaths. Feel your lungs fill up more and more each time, and let go from your diaphragm more and more each time. And as you complete your last breath, imagine yourself turning into an AI or robot, a creature from the far future. What parts, as this is occurring within you, do you notice are changing? What's going on in your mind? What about your heart, your limbs, your legs and feet? Take note of it as we'll talk about it in a moment. Pick 1 to 3 things that really stuck out to you. Now, open your eyes. Welcome back. And you know, you're turning back into a human, and just take notice of what shifts back into your being, and let it all go. So hopefully that was interesting. And what I'd like to do is, with folks with the mics, is have at least 3 reflections on what happened for you, what changed. And I'll just leave it at that, and then we'll kind of go into it from there. So who wants to be the first to share what happened to you in that exercise?
So in the AI being, I thought about how children idolize their mothers. And you know how your mother always said, stop it. And you think, she's not even looking my way. And she'd say, I have eyes in the back of my head. And that's what I thought of. I was like, you know, there are no eyes, but you see all. And, you know, mom can cure your scraped knee. Mom can fix this. She can do that. She can see what you're doing even if she's not looking. And so it could be that it could be something very kind of comforting, soothing, and I don't have to keep track of any of the details of my life because I can get this AI being to track it all for me. Or it could be very menacing, depending on if it's a benevolent AI being or not.
Thank you for sharing. That's really wonderful to hear. How interesting. Who else wants to share? We got somebody in the back over there. 2 people in the back.
Hi, so that was really a very interesting exercise that I never did before, and obviously I didn't have time to think further about it, but like if I think of myself or anyone else as an AI, in the end, it's a multi-layer neural network capable of like lots of operations, and that's what we all are anyway. So the funny thought that I had that theoretically, it's not that different what we actually are, because obviously artificial intelligence just copied the way the neurons of the human body works, with one exception, that my choices and my thoughts somehow end up irrationally and non-pragmatic and non-linear way, while when I was an AI, everything would be kind of much more linear. And then you said to open the eyes, and I didn't develop it further, but I could potentially in the future.
Wow, thank you. Fascinating. I think we had somebody over here as well.
So for me, without much overthinking, my first impression was just silence. And when I opened my eyes again, I just felt overwhelmed with, again, the reality and all the senses, hearing stuff, seeing stuff. And as an AI, I don't know, it felt in a way very calm.
Wow.
That's it.
Peaceful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Let's do one more just because we're getting such great variety. Does anybody else want to share?
Yeah, well, for myself, what I noticed about there are no limits or no time, and your presence is everywhere, or maybe nowhere.
Thank you. So interesting. Like what struck out to me in all of what you shared is, in some ways, it sounds like it was a positive experience. Like it didn't. Actually, let's do a show of hands. How many felt like it was? It wasn't different than how you currently feel as a human in this moment. Interesting. So we got four-ish people. So not that many. So it sounds like we kind of felt something different. And your point about it being like the intention behind it, right? Like in some ways, it could do a lot. It can bring that that clarity, that ability to process. But really, what is that intention behind it that it's going to? I think that's a really interesting point. And then the points on like it being linear, as human beings, we have these emotions. And so in some ways, sometimes emotions can feel like distress and uncomfortable things that maybe an AI doesn't experience. And so is that something that, sets us apart, is that ability and capacity for emotion, for love, for heartbreak, for joy, or is that something that can be trained too, and maybe it's superficial and not felt in the same way, but it's something that it can seem like it is. So hopefully that was interesting, and I'd love for us to spread that exercise, because I think what that difference is where we are different than AIs and machines in the future, and we have to understand that, because that is what is going to be our gold star and what we want to protect. And it also gives us good insight of the overpowering abilities of AI, the ability to see everything, the ability to feel at peace. So I think it's an interesting exercise to think about what that line is of what defines us. So this will get more interesting as we continue our conversation. So I just want to summarize in case anybody missed it today, but we had a wonderful presentation from our UN representative to talk about the EU AI Act, and I think it's really, really important that we're doing this, and that it's part of the conversation so early on. I really commend that. And so I want to just summarize that real quick, because I think a few of the things in there help us define that line and start building that framework for it. So a couple of things that are important are things related to our privacy and security, and making sure those are respected. So in this all-knowing space where this being can look around and see and feel, can see things and process things, what is that line for us? Where do we not want that to enter? So like the idea of face recognition and being able to have sort of an endpoint of what is okay and what's not. These are things that as the technology advances, there'll be more categories of what we want to protect. Can you see through people? Can predict motion and express that, things like that. And the other area that I think is also interesting and important is like the continuous testing of this and making sure that any sort of biases are noticed and worked on. And I think a lot of us, we had talks about this earlier today, so I won't go into that. But I think that's a really important piece too, because that's going to hold us accountable to making sure our systems are in check. It's like our check on it, checks and balances. And then the ability to be able to have different levels of risks that are identified and penalties for it. So, you know, a lot of the work that's done in this space is business, and it's important for businesses to make money. So to have that kind of standard of this is not where we're going to allow ourselves to go as a whole is really important, because it can be enticing to maybe go in directions that are lucrative and not best for all. And then, you know, having a space and an office to be able to hold these standards. And so I just want to call that out, because those are some of the things that we can start thinking of like what that line is and what really does it mean to be responsible today, and then how can we extrapolate that, you know, 50 years from now, and really think about what is our value in this society so that we don't become obsolete to ourselves. So this is what I'm going to share now is not really probably a common point of view, or maybe even really thought about in this space, but we're going to go a little bit esoterical and kind of go into some of like the ancient beliefs that I think actually parallel where we are today and in humanity very well. So if anybody follows like astrology or kind of like ancient sciences, there's always been this like prediction that around year 2000 or year 2100, there'd be a moment where humanity tries to regain its control, and it's an immense age of innovation. And you know, I've talked a lot about like, you know, movies that have predicted things and all of that, but I'll leave that out for today. But I think this is an interesting point, because we're sort of at that point in civilization where we're becoming so advanced technologically. And how do we balance it? I do think that there's a lot of merit to that possibility of we're developing intelligence. It's not just a machine, it's intelligence. It's something like our brain. I think somebody said that it is like our brain. You know, these neural networks, it's processing like our brain, and that's really oftentimes a goal. So we're setting ourselves up in an interesting situation that we got to be really mindful of. So I recently read this article about, it was in the MIT Technology Review, and it was about, so Covariant is a spinoff of OpenAI, and through millions of observations, it's been able to build an AI model that helps like robots learn like humans, so, you know, in some ways more advanced and more human-like than what our current LLM models are. And this is just the beginning. There's going to be a lot more that comes out like this, where it's literally like the human brain and the recreation of it. So the area that I think is important for us to think about and focus on is taking this at a global level. So I think the EU has done a wonderful job with thinking about protection and privacy and security. And this is something that I feel like, you know, if you're from a different continent, to bring that to your places and spark up the conversation, because it only really takes like, if everybody's not doing it, that could potentially create harm to all. So I challenge everyone to kind of bring that and strike that conversation with everybody in their space, especially if they're outside of the EU. And I really want to just inspire and ask everybody to spend a couple minutes, like today, maybe after all these conversations and the excitement of it, to balance it with like, what is it that you'd love for 50 years from now to look like? what is it that you love to see, and what is it that you love to still do? You know, what is going to make you feel like a human being, and just kind of think through that, because those are the things that, again, we want to protect. We got to think about those things. And so today, my conversation is more to bring everybody questions and to inspire everyone to have conversations, because only through these conversations are we really going to know what that definitive human versus machine qualities are, which guide how we become ethical and responsible in this space. So I guess do we have time for some questions, or are we? Yes? Okay.
Then, thank you very much, first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my first question is actually, Sonia, may I maybe ask you at the very end of the conference to repeat that exercise with the whole audience? Because I think it was a really beautiful moment, and I think I would love everyone to experience it. So we'll have people like later on joining. If you're willing,
sure,
I would love.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. That was the first question. Then let me quickly check. I think we didn't have questions from the online community up till now. No. Any questions here from the audience? If not, then what I would find really interesting, you know, like now you are working in an enterprise, you know, like you're responsible for driving that journey forward. What did you find was, you know, like when you think about all the things that you talked about right now, what do you think had like a really important impact on how your company approached this journey?
The biggest lesson and takeaway that I've had with GoDaddy and others I've worked with is really often finding myself or my team in the position of being the educators. Mm-hmm. And so what often would happen is, you know, there's a pull between the business and, you know, whether it's saving costs or making money, and the right thing to do. And depending on where you are, the dynamics of that, you know, might change. So the biggest thing I found is, you know, not everyone has awareness in this space and how things work. So to just bring that's how we, like, so I'll give you an example. There was a moment where we were about to, you know, talk about launching a product, and there were some critical pieces, you know, missing, but it's because nobody thought about it. And so I just, you know, made sure to do my research and bring those points in, and then they became a part of how we launched. So just you know, read the EU AI Act, keep up with the information that's out there, and bring those facts into your workplaces. It's really important. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? If not, then let's give one more big applause.
Thank you.
To Sonia. Thank you very much.
Thank you.